ลืมปิดเสียงใช่ไหม
ปิดเสียงด้วยนะคะวรนัย
ครับซูนครับอุ้ยทำผิดม็อบ20 ตุลา for the fourth day ศุกร์เสาร์อาทิตย์จันทร์อังคาร 4 days in a row
I should tweet it as well, right?
Hi sound check are we good is the sound alright
Yeah. Whenever you guys ready.
Shall we? We shall.
we shall
Hello and welcome to Thisrupt Talk episode 7, right?
Yes, 7.
Thailand's Cultural Revolution. Finally, we made it back into our studio.
Nice and cozy, but we miss the scene out there though.
Exactly.
And when we are out, we miss it here.
And because we miss the lovely, vibrant background, we choose to open the curtain. And we have
and actually what we miss when we are outside is the comments from audience.
Right.
Yes, because we can be more interactive when we are in here. So hopefully today I will get more opinion and questions from you.
Well, definitely today we're going to talk about the Thailand's culture. So I'm sure there are a lot of comments and questions. We'll get to them as much as possible. At least the ones that would not cause Kunbo and I to be in prison. We'll keep it within the law. Nonetheless, here we are. Before we get into our topic today, right? Today, October the 28th. At first, there wasn't supposed to be any protest, right? The Free Youth Movement made an announcement earlier today. Let's take a break. Let's take a rest and let's go eat khao gang, mo gang, or whatever.
Yeah.
But then suddenly, the big surprise, by about 3-4 p.m., boom, more protests. And it's going on right now, not just in Bangkok, but in the provinces, in Chanthaburi. We just tweeted about it. Why is there a protest?
Actually, there was a poll before that,
right.
So maybe this may be one of the reason they put a poll on the web the fan page of the Free Youth Movement, saying that either you can choose, you can vote either to stay home today or to go out, and I think majority vote like to have a mob again today. But it's close though. Some people get tired, and maybe some adults want a break for today, and maybe more kids want to get out there.
Well, close call or not, that's how democracy works, right?
Yes.
Let the people decide, and so those who want to come out, come out. Those who don't, stay home. Freedom of choice.
So that's maybe the reason, but may not be the main reason. The main reason may be that they just want to fool the police again for making them think that okay, we are taking rest today.
Right.
And the third reason, which is I think the main one, is because they want to call for the release of the rest of the leaders.
So quite a few protesters who were arrested, 40, 50, 60 so far have been released, except for some of the key ones, right?
Right.
And they were actually granted bail by the court, but then the police came back with more
another
more charges,
yes.
and detained them. For example,
Rung and Penguin, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, I have to admit it things happening quickly and it's very eventful. I cannot even catch up anymore how many cases they have. I think it's become countless.
Okay. And all this is possible because we are under the very serious emergency situation in Bangkok.
Yes, and there's one development from there as well. Today, Pheu Thai Party and three people, Dr. Cholanan Seegaw, คุณจิรายุห่วงทรัพย์ those are two MPs of เพื่อไทย and one student คุณ ธนวัฒน์ วงศ์ชัย จุฬาลงกรณ์ student they are the one who submit the petition with the support of the lawyer association. The chair of the lawyer association is their lawyer to ask for the civil court to consider cancelling this announcement of severe emergency situation in Bangkok. And usually when this kind of petition is submitted, the order is within the same day because it's an emergency issue and emergency request. However, the civil court give the order and say Thursday morning you come to hear the
so in 2 days
judgment.
time.
2 days time. That means they can have 2 days of exercising this almost absolute power.
So the situation is not so serious anymore. But if I may add on to that, see, this is the structure of the government. You have the executive branch, that's the Prime Minister's office and the cabinet. You have the legislative branch, those are the lawmakers, the MPs and the senators, and then you have the judicial branch, right? The judges. The three branches are supposed to be the checks and balance of each other to make sure one branch does not abuse power. However, so far, power almost completely lean towards supporting the executive branch, which is General Prayut Chan-o-cha. In Parliament, you have 250 senators some way somehow involved in the legislation of basically everything, and you know who they belong to. Now, if the lawmakers and the executive branch all comes under General Prayut, the people only have the judicial branch to rely on.
Right.
Whether it's a civil court, the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, no judgment, no criticism, but simply a request. Somebody have to side with the people. After all, judges, when they went to school, they learn about law and justices.
And that's every human's basic need, the word justice. However, I think the people's power play a role here, because if we remember yesterday, the main demand for yesterday was to ปล่อยเพื่อนเรา right?
Like free our friends.
Yeah, free our friends, and later in the day they are freed on bail, majority of them. So.
Right.
That's why they keep pushing more today.
Let's see if the court keep freeing them and if the police keep charging them. Let's see what will happen. But nonetheless, there is some development. The parliament will convene on Monday and Tuesday of next week, which in fact, if you ask me, it should have been convened on the 17th in the morning following the crackdown on October 16th. That should have been an emergency session. Nonetheless, they're going to convene next week. What do you think about that, Kunpo?
Okay, actually there's some red tape procedure that may delay them, but you're right, actually if they have thought about it on that day, it may take place today, for example. Yeah, they have to gather some hundreds names in order for that to happen. I think it needs to be done, and yes, they have to discuss the way out. No more proposing of setting another commissioner to listen to people, because I think you can hear it loud and clear by now. I think in those 2 days they have to put their heads together and think how to end this peacefully and constructively and productively.
Okay, and interestingly enough, today on Twitter there are 3 trending hashtags that are quite popular all throughout the day. One is เรารักสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ We love the monarchy institution. The next one is ราษฎรใต้ร่มพระบารมี The people under the umbrella of His Majesty. And the last one is อนุชนรักชาติศาสตร์กษัตริย์ Youth who loves the country, the nation, the religion, and the king. Now these hashtags have been trending. They are made by not IO, but people who love the king and the institution and the religion, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's interesting, there is a pushback right now against the protest movement, and of course the youth movement and the pro-democracy protesters have also joined into this hashtag. So there's a bit of argument back and forth.
That surprised me though.
So there you go. This is what's happening right now, which leads to our topic for today: Thailand's cultural revolution. After all, the king, the monarchy, the religion, these are integral to Thailand's culture. So let me first take us back in time, right? On the June 23, 1932, the people of Siam, because back then we were Siam, not Thailand, the people of Siam went to bed under absolute monarchy. On the morning of 24 June 1932, they woke up under constitutional monarchy. One day, just like that.
A shock.
It was a shock. It was a rude awakening. Now, so the political system changed from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy. But what remained the same over that one day is the culture of Siam or Thailand now. And that culture is feudalism. Sakdikna. So politics change, society, culture hasn't changed. And one may argue, to a lesser degree of course, that in the year 2020, that culture of feudalism, Sakdikna, still have not changed. It may be less so, much less, but it's still there. And that's why we have what is happening today. It's more of a cultural revolution with these protesters coming out asking for equality under the law, basic human rights, so on and so forth. So what is it about this feudalistic culture? I mean, it's not unique to Thailand, it's everywhere in history, but today we still have it. But what is the character of this culture that is still the foundation of our country?
See, to put it in the picture of people's daily life, I think the word hierarchy play a big role here. Even when you enter a university, they have this system, SOTUS. I don't know if you have it in the US or not.
Of course, hazing is very normal in the US, but it's fraternities have it, sororities have it. If you don't join, you don't go through it. I never joined any fraternities because I like to be by myself. I don't make friends very well.
And the word SOTUS here translate as seniority, order, tradition, unity, and spirit. I don't know if it's the same there.
Not quite.
Right.
Hazing in the US is none about that. It's simply getting drunk, doing stupid things, humiliating each other in order to show solidarity.
Solidarity. I see, but
so there's similarity there, right?
In here the first word is seniority.
Seniority.
Okay, seniority.
Okay.
So this means in Thailand there's rank everywhere. If you go to the office, there's ranking in position. But okay, of course, in other countries there's ranking in position too. But that translates to how they interact with each other. For example, I used to work with one Thai organization. And in the meeting room, and I was very junior there, just graduated, and someone asked for opinion, and I did give my opinion. And when I was out of that meeting, I was called in by a senior saying that you don't give opinion in the meeting.
Right.
If you have something to say, you do it before, so that in the meeting we don't have difference in opinion.
Because you were.
Shon say what the.
Don't cuss, Shon. So you were the Phu Noi.
Phu Noi, Phu Noi, junior, senior, Phu Yai, superior.
Inferior, right? This is just cultural norm. I remember back in the States, I used to work at McDonald's, right? And I would treat customers and I would treat managers as equal to me. You know, customer come up, hi, welcome to McDonald's. May I help you? Managers, I look him in the eyes, handshake, shoulder bump, so on and so forth. But of course, in Thailand, it's different. The relationship between Phu Yai and Phu Noi, I always observe, especially in factories, in schools, or everywhere else. If you are the Phu Noi, you approach the Phu Yai a little hunch, a little bow. Always nodding.
You will your physical gestures like smaller.
Exactly.
You shrink.
And it's not in any rules to do that. No one forced them to do that. It's almost genetic. It's almost genetic. You do it automatically. You approach someone perceived as your superior, automatically your physical body movement lower you down.
I remember when I was in the 3rd grade, and there would be a very strict teacher walking into the room, and she will start scolding. Every day she will start scolding the students, like 9 years old student, for no good reason. And there was one student who may be stubborn inside, and when the teacher scolded her, she looked at the teacher like this. And the teacher said, "You cannot look at me, look at the floor." And that's how they expect the students to do towards the teacher. At that time, it was quite, it was quite dramatic. But this linked very much to the culture of the court culture, royalty, monarchy culture. Because in the old days also, there's the tradition that you cannot look directly at the king. Actually, even nowadays, you're not supposed to do that. When I was young, there was a part of the history that was told to me that there was the day that if you look at the king, soldiers will shoot an arrow at you. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but that's what I've learned when I was a student. So this is, I think, roughly what it's all about.
Okay, so we have a lot of hierarchy, we have a lot of privilege, double standard, which is a matter of culture. There is nothing good and nothing bad. There's a context of time for everything.
It's the culture of inequality.
It's a culture of inequality, and that's part of the reason why the protesters are out there. Now, yesterday, last night, when I was at the protest at the Kasset intersection, a lot of the students came up to give speeches, and they weren't actually talking about why youth must get out or reform the institution or even the 250 senators. They were just talking pretty much about their own experience, having to always kowtow to other people, having not the right to speak up, to question, having to always be obedient, and they don't like that. They feel they are being abused, they feel like their rights are being oppressed, and that's the main reason that they came out here, just regular, normal people and students, right?
So it's about authoritarianism in their life.
Exactly, and because everything is an expression of culture, right? Whether politics, the law, and everything else. If the culture reinforce hierarchy, privilege, ผู้ใหญ่ผู้น้อย then that culture manifests itself in the law, and those who run things, the bureaucrats, the governments, the generals, so on and so forth, and they want to keep this social order intact.
Okay, so you're saying that we have this culture as continuation from the time before we change our absolute monarchy to
constitutional monarchy.
Yes, or the absolute monarchy to a kind of democracy. But that the culture of feudalism is continuing up to now, and that may be the obstacle of the democracy. Well, does it happen in other countries?
If we look at the evolution of Thailand's history, right? We had the revolution in 1932, but then within a year, there was a dictatorship. The military did a coup d'etat. So within a year, before we even had an election, we became a dictatorship. And from since then until now, Thailand has been largely ruled by military dictators, or the military, whether directly or indirectly, in one way or the other, with this hierarchy system, with the institution above. Now, that right there is evidence to why or how we could not embrace democracy and have yet to actually become a democracy, because there hasn't been any change in the culture, in the cultural attitude, in cultural values. Now, you mentioned earlier other countries, right?
How did they do it?
I wrote an article yesterday about cultural revolution, and let's say in Western Europe, right? They had a long history of feudalism and also absolute monarchy, not unlike Thailand or anywhere else, but how was it that they were able to change? Well, history is long and bloody, right? They had many revolutions, many wars. You may be familiar with the English Civil War, the French Revolution, so on and so forth. But before they got there, there was the age of enlightenment. Right?
Oh, That sounds like something in Buddhism.
Exactly, the word enlightenment.
Yes.
Very nirvana.
So the age of enlightenment.
Right. So what happened was after coming out of the Middle Age, there was the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment, and Enlightenment started in the 17th and 18th century. What it basically is that it's an intellectual movement embracing the idea of humanism. We human, you are human, I am a human, we are all human, and therefore we are all important and we are all equal. That's when they started to embrace science, logic, reason, debate, dialogue, rationality, so on and so forth, and the idea of democracy foster, grow, and of course, one thing led to another. There were wars, World War I, World War II, blah 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 blah. But it was a long and bloody road for Europe to come to embrace democracy.
So in every country, before they have democracy, everyone has absolute monarchy system. But there was change in the mindset and values before
that. It's a normal evolution of any society. That's a ladder that you climb up. And again, going back to Thailand,
yes.
we went from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy
overnight.
A day. Most people didn't even know what happened. Nobody Facebook about it. Nobody retweet about it. There wasn't even a video on TikTok. So it was a sudden cultural shock, and it was still, and we are still in a cultural shock. I mean, a lot of people nowadays are still saying democracy. What's democracy? We don't need that. We should have a Thai-style democracy.
Yeah, and there's a saying that our change was like สุกก่อนหาม ชิงสุกก่อนหาม It was done prematurely.
Right. And that's why a lot of the conservatives will say Thailand is not ready for democracy, so on and so forth. Well,
after 88 years.
After 88 years. Well, no society is ever ready, but you just got to do it, right? And
so, yeah.
Interestingly enough, if you look at Japan and South Korea, right, and Taiwan, countries that have embraced democracy, but they did not have that age of enlightenment either. So what happened there? What they had was disruption. Wars that brought down the old tradition in order to build something new. Japan lost World War II. The Americans dropped 2 atomic bombs. They came in and occupied the country. They rewrote the entire constitution. They changed the way of life. They changed the way the people look at the emperor also, right? With that abrupt change, Japan was quickly transitioned to democracy. South Korea similarly. World War II, they were occupied by Japan, and then the Korean Wars between the North and the South, and then South Korea became a dictatorship for a while, but then they are able to change quickly. But the commonality is that big disruption that caused a lot of bloodshed.
Does that happen with all of the countries who are colonized?
True. Laos,
like Burma,
Indochina, Burma, Vietnam, so on and so forth.
But for Burma, they have struggled with democracy later.
Yes,
but that's another issue, though. It's like the fight for power.
Right. But then Thailand, we were never colonized. We were never in a devastating war, right? Even in World War II, we started with the Axis power, but then we technically lost, but we came out a winner some way somehow because the Americans needed us to be an ally in the Cold War.
So our culture is very well protected.
Well preserved. See,
yes.
There's a smooth path of traditional culture that was never disrupted one way or the other. Not that it should be disrupted, definitely not with war and bloodshed. I think we have a lot of history to learn from, and history is there to be learned from. We can be enlightened, we can change, we can have knowledge without going through all the wars and revolution.
How do you think we can do that now?
It's happening right now, right? Now, as we speak, out in the streets, the protests.
So there must be some kind of disruption.
Disruption. It doesn't have to be violent. It just has to be a disruption of the way people think, values, and ideas. That's why people are saying that the protests out there today and for these months is not done by bullets and guns and arms. It's done by ideas and values. And this is the disruption we are experiencing. Right
Can
now.
we call it revolution in thought, revolution of the minds?
Yes, revolution of the minds. And in fact, if I may add, sorry I talk a lot today because these are the things
I'm here to learn.
Exactly. These are the things I've been dying
Yes,
to say.
actually you are a lecturer in political communication, right?
Yes, I'm a lecturer, so I tend to talk a lot when I have the microphone on me.
Yeah.
So what happened yesterday in Chiang Mai? The political science faculty, the students at Chiang Mai University actually issued a proclamation. They want to stop the SOTUS system, in their faculty. They actually want to stop doing the Shomrom Pupokrom, the Parents Association. Basically, they want to cease all things, all activities and organizations that in any way, shape or form support the hierarchy, the social order that is ruled with authoritarian power. They are going that far.
Okay, so the revolution starts at that level already, the university. I put my mic here because there's some complaint about the sound. I'm not sure if it's better. Please let us know about yours. Okay, would you like to read a bit of comment?
Yes, let's look at comment. I have been talking far too much.
Oh, it's good. Hi, I'm from Hong Kong. Hi, Wong. Hong Kongers stand with Thailand, but are not. Human history recorded the name of Cultural Revolution is a human disaster. This name carry a very painful history. Thanks. Thank you for that. Tim said in Thailand now it's rule by law, not rule of law. Exactly.
Exactly. Rule by law, meaning the people in power can use the law however they like.
Yeah, and Diano say there is clearly a danger of the army, citing that the government have lost control and attempts another coup. Yeah, that's what we are worried about too. What do you think should be the next steps of the protesters that applies pressure to the Prayut government while not mobilizing the military?
Okay,
Maybe
so basically what should the protester do in order to make change, however do not instigate the situation to the point that there might be a coup, right? Do you think there will be a coup, Kunbo?
I think that it's very tempting to them now, if I guess. Yeah, I think it's quite tempting to them. But because of the people's power they are seeing now, they don't dare to do that yet. Because many people said, this is the phrase many people say, they said, if it happened this time, it will not be the same as before. Right. What is the same as before? The same as before was like when there's the announcement for a coup, everybody stay tidily at home and just keep quiet. And even sometimes some people get out to support the soldiers. But so by them saying that this won't be the same as previous, mean people will come out and go against it and fight, and that is something they have never dealt with in every coup.
I agree. From what I have seen so far, the rule of fear would likely not work this time, right? Normally tanks come out, we Thais, very docile, very conforming, we all go home and let things happen. But the protesters out there have shown, no matter how young they are, you can crack them down, you can spray water lacing chemical at them, and yet
you can give them charges.
Charges after charges, and yet the next day they come out to protest, and more of them even come out. And the leaders and other protesters that have been released, what do? As far as I know, from what I read so far, they are protesting still, so they are not going to stop. But also, why would there need to be a coup? Right? There's only a coup if the government does not get along with the army. But if the government and the army are basically one and the same, there's no need for a coup. However, interestingly enough, in Thailand there is such a thing as self-coup.
It happened.
Thanom Kitikajon did it, Saritanala did it, people who just coup themselves to get out of a political stalemate. Then step down for a few days and then step back up because of the coup.
In order to manage the cabinet conveniently, form a new cabinet, maybe with the same or not the same prime minister. That could be done too. But but I think not this time, because I think they have the cabinet in the way they want already, and they can reshuffle anytime if they want. So maybe you're right, the motivation for the coup is not there.
It's not there.
But if you ask what can the protesters do, I will say keep doing what you are doing now, because this make them be in fear already.
Right now, at least to most of the analysts I talk to and experts, academics, so on and so forth, that's a clear way out. But that clear way out for Thailand requires someone to reduce his ego for quite a bit. What should happen after today, after we are done with this show, precisely the moment we're done with this show, is that the protesters have stepped up enough pressure that General Prayut accept the fact that he needs to resign. That doesn't mean he has to be out of politics. It just means he has to be able to handle and manage the situation. Step down, somebody will take his place, perhaps Kun Jurin, Democrat Party, perhaps Kun Anutin, Phumchai Thai Party, perhaps Kun Apisit, formerly Democrat, or still Democrat anyway.
And there's Kun Sudarat as well. Yes, I think that's all in the list already. Actually, there's Kun Sudarat and Kun Chachat.
Chachat is also there.
And there's one more from Pheu Thai.
Okay, so there are 4 or 5 people, candidates still left, in which the parliament and the senators, of course, can vote to become the new prime minister.
And if they cannot agree with all this, the constitution allow them to choose from outside.
Right, somebody outside.
Yeah, somebody outside. And that is acceptable to all, but that is not very desirable to the pro-democracy camp.
The first name pop up in any person's head would be Anan Banyara, right? But he has said nothing about this. Let the man be.
But I don't think Kun Anan can be that this time due to his issue on WikiLeaks.
Okay, that's right. In any case, when that happens, right, we will have a prime minister who perhaps will allow for there to be a motion for the lawmakers to at least debate a possibility of having a referendum so that the people can decide on whether or not the constitution can be amended.
Yeah, actually the constitution can be amended according to the stage. In this stage, there's no referendum according to the constitution, and there should not be, because it can pass in the parliament.
Only in certain clauses, right? Like what the Khao Klai party, Move Forward party, was trying to do.
But that for the referendum, it's needed in the last stage.
Yes.
There are a few more to go.
Yes. So eventually, that's what they want to get at, to amend the constitution.
Right.
In its entirety, at least that's what the protesters want. So everything will be in the legal process in any case, and eventually everything will be up to the people of Thailand whether to vote to amend or to rewrite
at the
charter at the end of the day.
I think that the consensus among the MPs, I mean the government and the opposition, and not yet include the Senate.
Right.
The consensus is like to go ahead with the amending the constitution by amending the article 256 in order to be able to set up the constitution draft council, and that council will be the people from election. The member of that council will be from election. So it's like direct authority you get from the people's hand in crossing the ballot. And then the whole new constitution will be drafted, and after that will be the referendum.
Right.
So that is the consensus among the MP of both sides. What they need is the support from senators, and at least 84 of them.
And that's the key, right?
That's the key.
And so for any of that to happen, General Prayut has to do something.
Right. Dino has another comment here. These problems all stem from one issue: education. Thai education needs reform. Its structure, syllabus, and delivery needs modernization, and critical thinking needs to be supported. Fully agree. And education reform, in order for it to take place and be successful, it requires political stability, because it needs the leader to drive through the whole process. So this come after we get the democracy, I guess.
Again, but let me also be the cynic, be the devil's advocate. That's
Yes.
exactly what the power that be doesn't want to happen.
Right.
Education reform, because why have an intelligent population? Why have a well-informed population? Let's keep the people ignorant so they can be easily controlled. And that's why for the past couple of years, the government have this project that sent in army officers to schools to indoctrinate them into the three pillars of Thailand: Chát, Sasana, Pramakasak, nation, religion, and king, right? And that's why you see the protest today, the young students, the bad students, นักเรียนเลว coming out protesting against the schools and their teachers, and you see this battle between them and the teachers and the schools who do not want them to come out. The teachers and the schools do not want change. They don't want that reform. If we have that reform, students might talk back even more, might ask questions even more, and that's not good for them. Because again, I may be alone in this, but it's in the attitude, it's in the culture. Before we change anything else, we have to change the way people think, the values, and that's what the people out there, the protesters, are doing right now. It's not going to be easy, of course, but that's the way it is. Any more comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think the bad education system here is intentional?
No.
From what you were saying.
The question from my boss, Chon, is that is the educational system intentional? In my opinion, it's not. It's the same system that every society had. This is the most basic form of how society functioned and how education came to be, right? Learn the knowledge, learn discipline, learn obedience, learn conformity. This is perfect 2,000 years ago. Perfect 1,000 years ago, when societies were different, when contexts of time were different. However, again, we talk about evolution, right? Thai society was no different from society, was very little different from society in England, in France, back in the old days, back in the Middle Age, right? Have you ever seen that series, Downton Abbey?
No.
Very popular British series,
Where was it?
set around the period before World War I. And it's about the life of English people, right? It's a big manor house where a lord and a lady lives, and there's the people who live upstairs, the people who live downstairs, the servants, the peasants, right? And there's that hierarchy. And when the butler serves, he doesn't look at his lord and lady, the way he speaks, the way he slouches, on and so forth. It was there in Western society, but then there's an evolution, right? So right now, Thailand have not had that evolution. That's all.
Yeah, but unfortunately for the conservatives, there's internet. And
Right.
even though the education reform is not there, kids learn from the internet, and the source is endless. So I think there's challenge on both sides.
Yeah. And that's why they try to close down the internet.
Right.
They try to ban Facebook. They're still trying to ban the voice TV. I think I heard today.
Oh, already, yeah, that's quite terrible. Because it will be the first channel to be attacked.
Right.
Uh-huh. Any question you want to bring up from our audience, Kun Chon?
Because we have
You
internet
may
problem
need
here,
your
right?
help to pick, because
I have my
it's
iPad
running
in front of me,
fast.
but the internet's not working. So
his computer died already. Let's see, Kun
But-
Wong.
Kun
Yes.
Kim is saying keeping the education system like it is intentional.
Somebody disagree with me. Okay, he made a good point.
Yeah.
Kun Tim said keeping the education system the way it is intentional. I will agree with that. What I meant was, when it was created, it wasn't intentional. It was just the way how things worked back then.
And maybe mixed with the inefficiency
Right.
of the whole system.
But right now it is intentional. The indoctrination of the
Right,
code and everything.
right.
That is intentional.
Carla said in Germany we had also the instant change in one day when at the end of World War One, the monarchy was abolished after approximately 1,000 years, but it wasn't a big landmark change as it was a constitutional monarchy the decades before. Oh, interesting.
Allow me, of course, I'm not a German, but I know a little bit of history. Here's what I've learned at least. World War One happened, Germany lost, the Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated, the monarchy system was abolished, and they had a republic, and then not so soon after, a man named Adolf Hitler came along. Now, but they were able to abolish the monarchy, not that we are saying that the Thai monarchy should be abolished. Nothing about that.
We are talking about Germany.
We're talking about Germany. Now, they were able to abolish the monarchy because Germany lost the war. Again, destructive disruption. Tens of millions of people lost their lives, and then the war was lost. Not just the Kaiser, Tsar Nicholas II in Russia, the Communist Revolution, and some other monarchs in Europe. That was pretty much the end of absolute monarchy in Europe, World War One. And then that created a vacuum and led to the rise of dictatorship. Where we have Hitler, we have Benito Mussolini, we have Franco Nero in Spain, and so on and so forth. And then World War II happened. And again, tens of millions of people lost their life. And those countries, well, not Russia, but Germany, became a democracy. Destructive disruption. Thailand have never had any of that. Not since Myanmar invaded and burned down Ayutthaya. But that did not destroy the culture. We all have the same culture. They didn't introduce anything new. And again, Thailand don't need to go through any of that. History is there to be learned from.
It's interesting to learn, and maybe how changing from absolute monarchy to democracy is one thing. But how can a country like Germany develop from being just a democratic country to become the country that is almost like a role model in democracy and human rights? Or maybe the whole EU, European Union there, they put a lot of emphasis on human rights. And I think at a high level, it is sincere. I know German embassy here, for example, they're very, very much into the issues of human rights, and I think it's very genuine. And how did it happen? Because we don't see this in US, for example.
Well, I may agree and disagree with that, and also again, it's a matter of perspective. If you ask us in Thailand about the level of freedom and human rights in Europe, of course we say, wow, they have so much, right?
We're like looking for
but if you ask the people there, the normal people in Germany, in France, for example, not all of them, but a lot of them would say it differently, right? A lot of them would say that there are a lot of human rights problems over there, a lot of abuses, that the governments don't work, so on and so forth. So everything all things are relative, right? And in the US you have Trump, of course. Again, all things are relative. But the biggest difference here is, no matter what happened over there, everything, at least so far, is within the democratic framework, right?
Is it possible that developed to that point because of some pain they have endured before? Like, in the Britain, in Britain, they have this equality and diversity policy at the government level for, I think, 10 years ago or more. And before that took place, there must be something happened earlier, maybe some kind of bad situation or pains or conflicts.
Well, I think European history have shown a lot of pain and bloodshed, and we talk a lot about that already. But if we talk about modern history, what immediately happened before they embrace diversity, equality, basically is simply the people standing up and speaking out, protest. All of these movements, feminist movement, civil rights movement, democracy movement, that's why they protest all the time in Europe. In France, they protest every day. It's routine, right? It's a barbecue when you go to protest. And in America, protest is normal. It's because people have the right to stand up and speak out and to actually impact change no matter who you are, whether you are women, LGBTQ, or people of ethnic minorities, you impact change by coming out and show your power, just as the people out there.
So we are on the right path.
So that's exactly. You have to come out and make impact in order to necessitate change. Simple. And those who do not want change do not want the people to come out.
A word from Kun Prayut, as you mentioned, those who don't want change. Tom, no. For Prayut. Tom Macram said, Prayut has shown no ability to listen, reconcile, or embrace democratic values. Cannot see him resigning. He is still a general at heart. I agree, he's still a general at heart and probably not resigning with his own will, but with someone else's will.
So let's follow to another
question.
Yeah,
sure.
So Kun Septon Huntley, sorry if I pronounce
Septon
that wrong.
Huntley.
I
believe.
As you are saying, power, ผู้ใหญ่, class-based, emperors, etc., rarely give up power without bloodshed. So how do we see the Thai society power structure change without all the bloodshed that many others have had to suffer in the past?
Okay, so the question is, how do you see the power structure in Thailand change without bloodshed, as other nations have suffered in the past? Again, it's just an opinion. It's just my own analysis. It can be changed because one, we have all this history to learn from, and two, every nation has a context. In Thailand, like it or not, democratic or not, the institution and the king, His Majesty, they matter. They have impact. They have consequence, right? General Prayut want to resign on his own. I think people generally agree on that. However, if there's a whisper from above, just to say, hey, dude, you know what? You can't handle it. Take a step. Fade away like an old soldier should. Perhaps that may happen. Because again, going back to what we were talking about 10 minutes ago, we require a prime minister who is willing to negotiate. Just to negotiate. Just to talk. Just
Come to the table.
Just to push through all of these things in parliament and let the lawmakers discuss it. As Kun Bo has described the process earlier. Just allow that to happen freely and don't mess with it. Okay. So in the context of Thailand, that may need to happen.
Yeah, I think another way, yes, that and also the consensus from the society in terms of voicing out. If we have this number of protesters on the street, we have the media saying this in the same direction, we have academics shouting the same thing, and we have that picture of the unity of consensus of what people want.
Again, let me be the cynic. This is what I know.
Yeah.
I know the people around General Prayut, the entourage, are saying things differently. They are saying these kids, they are gullible, they are being manipulated by the evil nation haters. The name of Thanathorn, for example. They are being misled. We just have to correct them. We just have to say more and speak more. You just have to go out in the province and meet more people, and all things will be changed. This is a work of nation haters and an international global conspiracy to overthrow the kingdom of Thailand. And General Prayut, you are the only one who can save us, and therefore, please do not resign. This is not what I'm saying. This is what his entourage, his people are saying. And that's why he is the way he is.
Okay, so it's challenging. Kun Anupap said, do you think the Thai monarchy will adjust to current world era? And how would it be?
Yeah, I was looking at that comment too.
Sorry, say it again.
Okay, I give this question to you. Do you think the Thai monarchy will adjust to current world era? And how would it be? Do you think he will adjust? I think he will.
This is the most dangerous show in the entire kingdom of Thailand. Do I think? Well, I have my thoughts, but it's just one man's thoughts, right? And then there is the reality of the monarchy institution will do as the monarchy institution see best, and hopefully the institution will see best that right now the people need help. The people need a voice. The people need to be able to push through certain reforms that will guarantee certain rights, basic human rights, fundamental human rights that we deserve. That's what the people are asking. And I believe the monarchy institution is capable of listening and understanding. One side extend a hand, the other side extend a hand. At least that's my wish.
I think personally he already, in the current world era, due to his life in Germany and cultural experience and all that, and even in education, he spent a lot of time in Australia and I think Britain, right?
Right.
And so I think the base of understanding about the current world is there. Whether or not he want to reform is another issue.
Why not? I say I'm putting everything on Prayut. He's the one in the way. He's the one in the way. Let somebody else be there, and I think we all can talk and find a way out. Because again, the institution, the king, I will always insist, is the most loved and respected institution in the Kingdom of Thailand, and that is just the fact. And how integral the institution has been to the Thai society, we cannot move anywhere, we cannot go anywhere without working together. The institution and society has to work together, right? And that's what the protesters want, a constitutional monarchy with the king as the head of state. There is no overthrowing, there is no defaming, there is not anything. Simply with the king as the head of state and the institution to be there for the Thai people and the Thai society. We just want to be able to have more basic human rights and a constitution that is fair and just.
Any more?
This one that I've been eyeing for a bit, from David Robinson. So what's different this time is that young protesters are English speakers, articulate and rational, so easy for the world to understand. He asks, will this make the current protest more effective? Because they speak English,
I would say it will make the world understand us easily and directly if they speak to you or to the media, but it has very little effect in Thailand, because the attitude of the government here is that they don't really care what the world community think, unless you do like economic boycott, because I've experienced that before over the time of the junta after the coup. There are statements from EU, from UN, and from individual countries as well, to encourage the government to give back our power to hold elections, and they simply don't care. So the pressure from international community works with the government who is that cares, and the government that cares means the government that comes from election, or the government that has to depend on the next election.
Well, here, allow me to be the optimist. See, we can never agree. Allow me to be the optimist
this time.
Because these protesters are articulate, internationalized, use English a lot. I mean, we are getting a lot of attention. The amount of articles and contents that I have seen from international news media has been in abundant. And also, if we remember, not too long ago, the German parliament was just discussing Thailand, right? We're not going to go into it, but they were just discussing Thailand and the possibility of not negotiating free trade agreement with Thailand if the junta continues to be the junta, to act like the junta, for example.
Yeah, this level of action would have some effect.
Right, and also
not only condemnation.
There is a sort of a regional movement, because a lot of the Thai protesters find things in common with the protests in Hong Kong. Even though in Hong Kong let's just use the word, it's much more extreme, the situation in Hong Kong. But again, it's a fight for freedom, it's a fight for basic rights, and there's a lot of hashtags going on. The Milk Tea Alliance. Hong Kong people stand with Thai people, so on and
Taiwan,
so forth.
Taiwan.
So the more people talk about it, the bigger it grows, the more pressure it will be on the government, and no matter how indignant they are. Also remember, another part of the Thai culture is we care a lot about face, the face value, the image, เสียหน้า is very important to us. We want to look good to other people, so that may lend a hand in pressuring people to find a way out.
Oh, a lot of interesting comments. Jasmine Kaur said, do you see a vicious cycle over and over again? 2005, 2008, 2010, 2014 to 2020 protests from either side followed by elections or a coup. Has it become a tradition that repeats over and over again, and in the end, because of the failure of both sides to understand each other, only Thai people suffer and suffer again and again, over and over again? What can be done to overcome this?
Wow. But let that
Cultural change. Right, because it takes place over and over again because when we have conflict, the solution is always a coup, and a coup never let democracy grows.
We have been in a vicious cycle because again we have had like 21 attempted coup d'etat in the past 88 years. That's one coup attempt every 4 or 5 years, and especially over the past 16 years there have been two very successful coup d'etats. Will this trend goes on? The answer is no, because do you know what else is a fact of life? Time changes. The protesters out there today, a lot of them may be 15, 16, but then there'll be 20 and 25 and 30 and 40 and so on and so forth. And one day later, if not sooner, they're going to be the one running this country. So change will happen. It's just a matter of when.
So you don't think that soldiers of their age will stage a coup?
There's always a chance, but again, time change. Okay, we live in a context of a very different world. It's a globalized world, right? So there's a lot of knowledge and information of that. People
right,
change.
and actually, I think to answer this question shortly, that's why they are calling for monarchy reform here, because every time there's a coup, the monarch has to endorse the coup, and the protesters think that is the center of the problem. So probably if they can achieve the monarchy reform, maybe this vicious cycle will stop.
That's actually a very good point. If I remember correctly, that's in one of the 10 demands to reform the institution by the Thammasat group, right?
Right.
To not endorse a coup d'etat. And again, the monarchy can be the most respected institution, the king can be the head of state. The demand is simply don't endorse a coup d'etat because you're legitimizing it, which, you shouldn't legitimize a coup d'etat.
Would you like to take this last question?
Oh, are you still answering?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
There's another comment from Rob V. Berg.
Rob,
Those people who think that the youth is so easily influenced, how do they explain this with all what is drilled into kids at school and such? It should be easy to control the kids and step in line if the children are so easily influenced.
I don't know why people think children are easily influenced. I think deep down they know that it's not true, but they just don't want to accept the fact. Because everyone, especially those who have kids, kids are not very easily influenced. You cannot influence them to take bath on time, for example. And if they are so easily influenced, Prayut would be successful in doing that by now, because over those 5-6 years he has put something in school. He has almost amended the curriculum, and yet still.
Actually, well, let's try to make this the last question because it's 8 o'clock. But let me.
I have the last one.
Okay,
here.
The last one.
Yeah.
But let me answer this one. Children are not easily influenced. Otherwise, they would be obedient, conforming citizens, because since the day they were born, they have been indoctrinated into the traditional Thai culture from the family, parents. The first day of school to this very day, they have been influenced to act and behave a certain way. Obviously, that didn't work. They were able to make up their own mind. So obviously, they are not easily influenced.
So I think those people who believe so simply just want to avoid the fact.
The misdirection, right? It's easier to not blame the kids. It's easier to blame the evil nation haters and global international conspiracy. They're just not accepting the facts that their own children, the young people of this country, just don't want the same thing anymore.
Can I have this last question?
Yes, you can.
I think I know which one you're thinking about.
Kun Pongthorn, right? What can we do to convince the royalists to see the youth point of view? Since I'm the one who read the question, you have to give your answer first.
Yeah, look, this is what I believe. You know, if you believe in something for your entire life, you're not gonna change, and you don't have to. I believe the people should love the monarchy if they want to, should worship the king if they want to. However they want to worship, they should be able to. This is their right, and the king is the head of state of the Kingdom of Thailand. The people who don't believe in the exact same way also have their rights. Politics should not have anything to do with the monarchy institution. People can have different opinions, different thoughts, but the point of the matter is, and that's the original demand of the protesters, is not to change any one person, is not to change the institution, but to change the law, the system. If we have a democratic constitution, fair and just, then everything will be fine. Not fine, there will be other issues, but at least in terms of how a society functions. And then royalists can be royalists. You want to be a nation hater? Be a nation hater. And every 4 years, come to vote. Let's see who wins. It doesn't work now? Never mind. Next 4 years, come to vote again. You don't like something? Go out and protest. Maybe you can make a change. Do everything in a democratic framework. And you don't have to convince. You can't convince royalists any more than if I were to go back to my hometown in Austin, Texas, and convince all my friends not to carry guns. Impossible. Impossible.
Okay,
all right?
so no need to convince. That's your point, yeah? No need to convince the royalists to see the youth point
Impossible
of view.
to convince.
Impossible to convince. But if you want to convey and you want to communicate, then keep the communication going, because sometimes you're successful with some people.
Fair enough.
Keep the dialogue going, but not with the aim to change, or with the aim to communicate, and then let the result be, because each individual has their own way of thinking.
And that's the perfect way to end this program. Keep talking, keep communicating, keep exchanging ideas. It's only for the betterment of society. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for all the comments, and sorry if we missed some. We'll go and read through them all.
We don't know where we're going to be tomorrow, at the protest or back here. We will keep you posted, sorry. Right? We're good, John?
Yep,
Turn it off, please.
Bye.
Bye.